Hi, this is Derek.
And this is Carrie from the Better Conversations podcast.
When we aren't talking about money and marriage, we're listening to Stephanie O'Brien on the Moved by Purpose podcast.
After a couple years of kind of diving into what I wanted to do, I realized that there was a unique market that wasn't being touched, which was why not bring a creative musical opportunity through the arts to children who don't have any form of creative outlets like that outside of their day-to-day. When I found out that there was kind of a zero market in Michigan alone for that, I decided to dive in full head of steam, which was allowing me to chase down both my passions, music and children.
Are you longing to know what your purpose is? Are you on the wrong career path? Do you feel like there must be more to life? Don't worry, there's hope. It's time to be moved by purpose. Now your host, Stephanie O'Brien.
Hey, you are listening to the Moved by Purpose podcast. It is your host, Stephanie O'Brien, and I am excited to be here today. Today's guest is someone that I met maybe a month or so ago, and you guys are in for a treat with his expertise and his heart and his authenticity and genuine desire to serve you guys and to help you succeed in fulfilling your dreams and going after what you want or what is in your heart to do. Apart from his work with Love Centers International, Joe Savali of Macomb, Michigan, spends his time as a musician, actor, and children's teacher locally. His dream of taking two unconnected worlds, music and children, and bringing them together has created what we now see as Love Centers International. Joseph believes that in every heart there is something that brings out the inner child, as well as true happiness. For him, this was the art of music. Joe has spent dedicated time teaching children the importance of maintaining a positive outlook on life through dedicated mentoring and faith-based camps. After having traveled to multiple countries and building hundreds of relationships throughout the world, the goal now is to endlessly give to the ones who need love most. Having been inspired by the entertainment industry, the Love Center's motive is to continuously build partnerships with inspirational figures and accomplish the goal of changing children's lives together forever. For at the heart of it all, let love be at the center of all we do, and let music be the universal language that unites us even when words separate us. Without any further delay, let's welcome Joe to the show. Welcome to the show, Joe. It is an honor to have you on today.
Pleasure. I appreciate you having me, Stephanie.
So I've gotten to know you through various meetings that we've had, and I know that you have just such a genuine and authentic heart to serve, but I would love for the audience to get to know you better, and I'd love for you to share your story about what were the things that happened in your life that led you to doing what you do today.
Appreciate it. So I am a young 31-year-old entrepreneur who has started a few different businesses, but my primary focus being a local charity serving Southeast Michigan. And the short story kind of leading to why I do this is that at a young age of 18 years old, I was embedded in the music industry, loving everything about the entertainment industry, learning how to basically create a network of success through real-life experiences. Not being a formal graduate of college and having a degree to support myself, I realized that throwing myself kind of into the fire of the real world in Los Angeles and Arizona and Detroit, that I had to create a unique style of creative marketing by expressing passion. When that is really defined of who I am as a character, I like when people know me for two things. That I work with children and that I work with music. Usually anyone that knows me can testify to one of those two things. And in the early stages, I couldn't decide in my career whether I wanted to be in the entertainment industry or I wanted to seek my gift of working with, underprivileged children. After a couple years of kind of diving into what I wanted to do, I realized that there was a unique market that wasn't being touched, which was, why not bring a creative musical opportunity through the arts to children who don't have any form of creative outlets like that outside of their day-to-day. When I found out that there was kind of a zero market in Michigan alone for that, I decided to dive in full head of steam, which was allowing me to chase down both my passions, music and children. And I realized that the return, the feedback to me sharing this idea to people, that people were all over it. So, I use my kind of formal education in music and my love for people and networking to create a charity that gives back to kids. And it's not really trying to challenge the process of going outside of formal college, university education. But the world that I think we're living in now is that through technology and through people's skills, you really can kind of chase down any passion that you truly have. And it's not to be cliche and say, whatever the dreams of your heart is, go chase them and do them. But if you really can sit down with a pen and paper and scratch out an idea, as I did in 2011, and then 5 years later, it be a up and running organization supported by the government, and you realize that every single day you get to do something you love that you don't look at as work. I guess I will be the first to be cliche and say anything is really possible. And I'm very humbled by the opportunities and conversations I get to have every single day helping kids.
So I am just curious, when you said that there was no existing kind of model for the dream that you had or what you envisioned in the area, there are a number of different thoughts on that in the business world. Some people will say, well, there may be a reason for that, and it might not succeed. And then others will say, you have to innovate, and sometimes being the first in the space is one of the best things that could happen. So in your situation, you were probably one of the first. Have others brought it up, that offer similar services as you do, or are you still the first and pretty much the only one?
I would say I'm one of very few. I have come across a couple local music schools that have ran maybe a program once a year that's a week long, maybe it's a month, who offer some type of charitable music concept to either kids of the community or foster children. But someone who actually physically created a charity that revolves around giving arts to children in need, I challenge you to go on Google, and in the Michigan area alone, as I looked for about 2 years, there was nobody doing that specifically, which at first brought concern that either, man, am I going to reinvent the wheel and just try to do an idea that's been done a million times and just call it a different name? But when I couldn't find that creative wheel out there, I realized it was an opportunity for me to invent that space, as you called it. And I was, like any other entrepreneur, when you are trying to do something like that, it can be scary because you feel like, well, if nobody's doing this, maybe there's a reason why nobody is doing it. But
right.
Proof in the pudding, I guess. I would like to say that I've had very much high success rate in the last 4.5 years specifically. And the people that have come to the table and said, how did we not think of that? This is an amazing idea, has kind of confirmed the idea that a unique thought can be a birth of something very innovative that can lead to a successful organization.
See, I love it because you're one of the first guests that I've had that really kind of started almost a new thing. There's a lot of advice out there for people who want to start either ministries, nonprofits, businesses, or something, that people will say you have to research the market like you did, see what's out there. And actually, there's so many, like, even for writing a book, that there's a lot of experts that say the worst thing you can do if you're trying to get your book published, and when people say, what have you researched, what have you found, how much is out there, and if you say this has never been done before or there's nothing out there like that, that's actually a red flag to people. And so you hear that a lot. So I am excited that you push through, because innovation has to start somewhere. And so I want to know, like, what were some of the struggles that you encountered? Because some people will look at what the other people are doing to help them see, one, how to differentiate themselves, two, maybe what the market is currently already accustomed to, and then how to kind of branch off from there. So I feel like sometimes having something that already exists is slightly helpful in creativity, where if it doesn't, I guess I suppose, is there more risk with it because you don't have anything to measure against and kind of taking a shot in the dark.
Absolutely. So to answer that question, some of the biggest struggles at first were running a charity is pretty much starting a business, whether you want to call it for-profit or non-profit. It's still a business model that needs to be set up with, tender loving care, just like anything else. If you don't have a process, a product, or the people in place, it's going to fail. I didn't try to challenge things that I did not know. Meaning, when you first start, there's paperwork, there's lawyers, and there's accountants and things that have to be submitted to the government. Those were things that were beyond my knowledge. Why? Because I'm a creative at heart. I operate better with creative ideas and marketing and advertising. I wasn't a black and white on paper type of person. But I realized that my first struggles were, gosh, I have an idea to start a charity, but I don't know where to begin. So I began to sit with accountants and lawyers and express my vision on paper with a business plan. The business plan was the start. It was getting people to believe in my idea that realized that they would pro bono me work. Hey, we want to be your accountant, and we believe in your vision, and we're going to do everything for you, and we're not going to charge you. We want to help. Hey, Joe, we want to help you with your lawyer fees and getting your papers filed with the government. And a normal cost that would be pretty costly per hour for our services, we believe in your vision and we want to help. And I realized that this was the part where I didn't have to reinvent the wheel, that I went to the people who knew the industry best and could help me really set up the process, which is truly the foundation of it all. And going through those early pains, of starting a charity was a learning lesson times 10. Obviously, once we got our first approval that we were a 501c3, then became the true hard part. Now I need to go find some children to work with. And I remember working with my very first underprivileged child and then going to a speaking event 3 days later in front of 45 business people and saying, here's my vision, here's my mission, I want you to partner with my idea for the next 12 months. And hands went up all over the area. And people asking me, how many kids are you working with? How large is your organization? How much are you funded by? We're working with one kid. We have $0 and we just started 2 months ago. That is the biggest struggle for any business owner, because you could either diminish your confidence very quickly, or you can thrive in that environment and say, won't this be the story that you guys want to remember? When we were working with one kid as a brand new organization, and you guys helped build an organization from, one child to 1,000 or $1,000 to $100,000. And that is the environment that could either eat and swallow up a business professional with an idea very quickly, or with the right people in place, you can challenge yourself and the people around you to jump in that success train and kind of ride it into town. And I challenged myself to be the latter of that. And here we are 4 years later, doing some pretty miraculous things that sometimes even I can't believe where we have gone in 4 years.
That's amazing. And you're so right with the beginning when you're asked those questions, and then you have to be transparent about the numbers. And I remember when I talked about my vision and what I did, and then people are, well, who have you worked with? Where are your testimonials and all this stuff? I'm like, I don't have a master client list, and and that is challenging to navigate. And that's actually a common question that people ask me is, man, these are the questions I'm getting, and I don't know how to navigate these answers. And I'm like, everyone started somewhere. Mm-hmm. You are going to find people that believe in you enough to take suppose it is, put their neck on the line and take the risk to help you, where they'll say, okay, I will invest in this training, or I will give you money, and without that proven track record of success or all of the clear, obvious things that show that you've been around for a while and you know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And they'll come, but and you navigated that well, of how to reframe it in your mind and then help the audience or the people interested in supporting you reposition it too. Because the first thing, I think it's human nature that the first thing people will think is, if you say you're just starting off or you don't have that much, is, well, how do I know that the money I'm giving you is going to be used wisely and responsibly? Mm-hmm. I don't want to pay for your mistakes to figure it out. Right. And so, and that's what that probably is what goes through people's head, but you've got to learn how to, move them away from looking at the risk and the fear into, but what about the victory? More people have to get reached. I'd love to reach more than one child. Look at how many more we could reach. And, that's how you positioned it. And, if you're for-profit, you can do the same thing.
Correct.
So. All right. One thing that really made me want to have you on as a guest, other than just your heart to serve and your expertise in business, and even if it's a nonprofit and a charity, it's still, like you said, it's still business. And was that you are very good at networking. And I'm curious, how important has networking played in the success of just your career overall, and then in Love Centers International?
Sure. Great question. Something I love speaking about. I feel like I can kind of say that I have built an official career of becoming a professional networker. And I think I've been doing it for about 8 years. At the current moment, I'm the president of one networking chapter in one of Metro Detroit cities, and then I'm an executive director of another networking group that is specified for direct business ownership. Each group having its own, diversity of professionals and different elements of networking that help business. But for me, it was really thinking about having a sales team of people that weren't considered my employees. I figured that if I came up with an idea and I embedded myself into a networking group or couple or several, the more people that on a weekly basis heard what I was doing and what I was striving to reach was conversations that were being had without me being in the room, which basically means when they go to work, hey, we know this Joe guy. He does something with charity and music. That is a conversation starter that means more to the average business owner than probably most give credit to. When you can kind of create this identity for you as, oh yeah, I don't know much about them, but I heard his name is Joe and he does charity and it has something with music and kids. Well, there's 4 keyword bullet points that all work together that somebody can develop some type of idea of what I'm doing. It's enough for them to search me. It's enough for them to ask a question. So for me, having a 100-person networking kind of blacklist that I get to have at my fingertips is people getting to talk about my works, what I'm doing with charity week to week, not month to month, but every single week they hear a new idea, a new concept, a new way to get involved with helping my organization grow, helping a child get to a camp, traveling internationally on a missions trip, purchasing a t-shirt that supports a program. There's a new thing that is happening week to week that these business professionals get to support. And let me dive into what people really want to hear on this podcast, which is some numbers. I threw my charity into a networking group in 2012. I wasn't working with one kid at the time. I had $0 in our bank account, but I wanted to see what the power of networking could do. Someone told me a statistic that if I attended 1 meeting per week and I gave out 2 to 3 business referrals to other people without expecting anything in return, that for every 4 business referrals I gave out, 1 would come back in. And that the numbers would show that if I did everything just to a bare minimum, I would raise about $12,000 in revenue that year. Well, I can be frankly honest that through some growing pains, I did about half of that. In our first year, we were able to raise about $5,600 that first year. The average charity in Michigan in the first year usually does somewhere between $250 to $500. So already our numbers were tenfold to what we should be doing. In my eyes, $5,000 as a charity felt like we're going to have to shut our ideas down tomorrow. We can't survive like this. A short 3 years later, with never taking a break, attending 1 meeting every single week for the next 3 years, I have met some amazing business professionals who have brought my organization from $5,000 the first year to $12,000 the second year, the third year $33,000, the fourth year slightly under $50,000, and as we approach this year, in the next 12 months, we will be government funded, doing well over 6 figures a year. To me, that is the 5-year business plan that most entrepreneurs chase. Is I had an idea, scratched on a law pad on an airplane that I came home and started thinking how to create. And here we are less than 5 years later doing 6 figures in business revenue in charitable donations that we get to help numerous kids and support camps. And that's not me trying to brag, but that is saying, hey, the proof's in the pudding. The more you get out there, the more people know what you do, the more you talk about it with extreme clarity, and more importantly, what you ask of those business professionals in return and how to get involved and how to partner supporting your idea. Any idea is possible to grow, whether it's a for-profit or not-profit.
Wow. So you just gave us gold. So I want to break down that. So because I was taking notes, this is going in the show notes. You just gave us the recipe right there. So 1 meeting a week, give 2 to 3 business referrals without expecting anything in return. And what was I thought you said 3 things.
So you 1 meeting a week, you give 2 to 3 business referrals out, and they say that statistic will bring 1 in. One referral that will change your business. So it might be that accountant you need, that lawyer. It might be a donation, but something that will invest back into your business. So that's the first 2 steps. And they say that if you do that every 90 days, statistically, you should be making somewhere around $2,300 coming into your business idea if your ask is specific enough that people understand how you're trying to grow. And over a 12-month period, that should be about $12,000 in actual cash revenue that your business is seeing.
So, for those that might be listening, be like, well, that's easier to do because he's got a charity. But this is for really any business idea.
Correct.
Okay. So, for those that are in your car listening, thinking, well, it's easier because he has a charity and it's for such a good cause, but I'm for profit and whatever, which if you've been listening to me, if you think that what you're doing that's for profit is not for a good cause, there's a problem. So, and that's about the mindset.
Yeah.
But so my next question then, because you said this really well, and I think that this is a process. Like you said, you had some growing pains. There's a learning curve here. It took me a while to get here, which is how to talk about what you do with extreme clarity. Do you have any, suggestions, or how did you get there? Did you do it right off the bat, or was that through trial and error and learning what works, what doesn't?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think trial and error is only going to create some natural failures that allow you to learn from your own business. I think sitting down, in my case, with my board of directors or a focus group was the biggest learning lesson. There were people that were directly involved with what I was doing who loved the fact that me, Joe Savali, could be in any room and I could pitch to a group and explain our story and who we are. It wasn't until I sat down at a conference table with 8 people who knew what I was doing, and I asked them to pitch me on the very idea that I've created, that I realized there was 8 different answers. And that created complete unclarity, confusion, people not explaining. And I realized that, well, gosh, if this is happening right in the room, what happens when I'm not in the room? And they're explaining this to the next person that walks by. They're getting the wrong answer, the wrong impression. We're not doing that. And I had to really focus in on, you know what? Just like any business, who's the people involved? What is the process in which or the program that we supply? And kind of why we're doing it. There was a 3-step process. And so we created something called a logic model. And for those listening, logic models are a very simple understanding, almost like a flow chart for a business, for an idea that allow people to understand the resources, the activities, and the outcomes. And it was creating a logic model for our charity that allowed me to explain to people what that program looked, what we were offering to children for a 10-month, how we evaluated it, and then how we sustained the idea to do it for a second year. Probably the most important piece of that is the evaluation period, understanding what we did right, what we did wrong, and how to improve those aspects so that the program was better for the second year. It brought in more donations, more partners, more sponsors, more children, more products, better feedback. And really, even though we're working with kids and we're mentoring them and we're sitting down with them, really on paper, we still have to check our stats, our analytics. We have to create a documentation process that says, this many kids came in, we surveyed them, we interviewed them, this is how their behaviors were changed, and this was the percentage of children that were impacted by what we do. It wasn't until we repeated that model maybe 3 years in a row that we really fine-tuned what we were doing year to year. And so now, to answer the question with like very specific clarity, is we express to people, this is our mission, this is our vision, and this is the logic model that makes us successful during the year. Now they get to understand what on paper we are sought out to do. They get to understand the creative vision of what we want to do in the next 5 years. And then the logic model produces direct, specific stats of what we've done in the last 12 months and how those children were impacted. That's when people can look at you, and if there is confusion or questions, that's okay. But I would say those 3 steps eliminate about 90% of questions that they could ask if you're doing it right.
So it's not this easy, just start talking.
Yeah.
Kind of process. You need to be very intentional about the words you use, what seems to resonate and stick with people. You didn't do it on your own, which is a key. You had a board or a focus group. I think a lot of people, because most of my listeners most likely are solopreneurs, where they may have a part-time assistant, but for the most part, they wear all the hats. And so they're used to having to come up with all of these things on their own. And that will give you decision-making fatigue. So I don't recommend doing that holding that long-term. But even for me, I have mastermind groups. I have other coaches I work with. I do network. That's another value of networking, is that you build relationships with other people and then also learn from their expertise. And you can get feedback from other people. So not everyone has a board or focus group right away. But I do recommend that you find a group of advisors that you trust as close as possible, or as quickly as possible, to bounce ideas off.
Yeah, and I think even with that, so people aren't intimidated, I mean, you could sit with your own parents, your best friend, someone that you really have a trust capacity with, and say, hey, I'm going to pitch my idea to you, my business plan or my concept. I'm going to do it 5 times. And every time you'll learn that you'll refine what works and what doesn't. And then really, you should flip roles and see if that parent or that friend or that trust person, if they can recite it back to you and they can understand it as well as you have it in your head, I think that's when you start to fine tune. All right, now I know how to speak about it. And going back on a question you asked me, I mean, yeah, passionate, creative people like me, we can talk a mile a minute. We can express our heart. We can get people on board that want to open up their checkbook and donate right away. Mm-hmm. But there's often times where a lot of the world, maybe 50% of it, the business executives and people that want to support you, they don't relate to you in that passionate way. They relate to you in black and white numbers. And if my program was on paper and they never got to see my face or hear my voice, does the program on paper make sense? Does it fluently express our mission, vision, and logic model? And does it give them a reason to write a check or jump on our website and donate or call me and say, how do I get involved? I have to realize that there's a 2-part fold to that. There's opportunities where passion makes sense, but then passion's not always the answer. Sometimes there are going to be people that respond to, hey, I like my T's crossed and my I's dotted. Let me see that all on paper, and let me see if you guys are official, you're authorized. Are you an active 501c3? We want to see everything A to Z that's logistic for me to have a comfortable decision to even just make a phone call to me to have that secondary conversation. And I think there's probably a lot of listeners out there that realize they fit one or two of those molds, that they'll say, yeah, I'm more the creative passion person. And great. You know what? Allow yourself to be that person. Get an executive director who excels in the opposite of you to help you with the things that you're not talented with. Some people might get offended with that, but I'm not the best at crunching numbers and sitting in front of a computer all day on Excel spreadsheets. So we have a person in place to do that. Why? Because that's their talent. That's their gift. And I realize when we come together that the balance of that equation is a better fit for success when I handle the part that I'm good at and allow the other professionals to handle what they're good at. I think that's how you start to create a successful plan moving ahead.
Absolutely. And for those of you who have been listening to me for a while, you know how much I talk about the DISC, personality profiles, and what Joe just described was basically the two. You have the passionate creative types, the people-oriented, and then you have the task-oriented. So for, Joe, I am a very passionate, creative type. I love people and networking and persuading and inspiring with words. It comes naturally to me with speech and communication. But when it comes time to crunch numbers and to really think of processes and systems and, I can do it. But doing that all the time will deplete me of energy because that is not my strength. I will do it when I have to, and I need to be aware of numbers and things. You can't abdicate that. But I do hire people or have people that have that strength where they love the analytics and the spreadsheets and the metrics and they love the numbers. And I'm like, good for you. I don't. And I'm so grateful for them because even if I kept trying to do it, I couldn't do it as well as they did. And then another thing is you make a very good point about not everybody is going to be moved by your charisma, your personality, your passion. And I have encountered people who are not moved by that. And I used to take offense to that. I'm like, why isn't this working? Why are you not ready to sign up? And it's because they needed more data, more facts, figures, information. They needed things in black and white. They needed that type of information. And so I had to get over myself and say, well, I don't want to do that and I don't have time for that and maybe they're just not the right person to work with me. And I'm like, okay. Or I can stop being lazy and making it all about me and learn how to communicate with these types of people that are wired that way. Yeah. Because I'm leaving so many people out, and that's not fair to them. And I know there's power in knowing who your ideal client is or who your ideal partners are, and there is wisdom with that. But just because it's not your strength and it intimidates you and you don't feel like doing it, like, that's really not a good reason to not do it.
Right.
So that was one lesson I had to learn is just how can I communicate? And ironically, most of my clients now have an opposite personality as me. And so I have learned how to motivate them and how to persuade them and how to communicate to their language. So that's important too in regards to networking. Is learning how to work with people and understand how they're wired. But that's more in depth later, and you guys know about the DISC and how I recommend that. So you guys can visit my website if you want to check more about that. But you have given us, Joe, a great recipe for networking and how to be successful with it.
Mm-hmm.
My other question then is, are you strategic about where you go and who you get in front of?
Great question. I'm going to answer that very openly. I'm going to say in my current phase where I'm at now, absolutely. Getting started, no. There's a reason for both. Let me start with the latter half. When you're first getting started, I believe that anyone that was going to give me an open ear, an opinion, look over my business plan, look over my idea, my website, whatever I was presenting at the time, was good advice. It allowed me to modify in those early stages. Obviously, I was sitting down with people that had some type of business knowledge or friendly advice. It could have been a best friend, but I wasn't sitting with, the person that's been sitting on the couch for 10 years and wouldn't give me logical advice. But at the time, those were all good inputs for me to take. Down the line, I have some larger goals. We've had some successes, some proven models. It's not that those opinions of those very first early people don't matter anymore. But where I used to ask the average small business owner or the mom and pop for a $100 donation here and a $50 assistance here or a gift card here, we've now advanced into being in front of corporations and business professionals and businesses who were going after larger checks, $5,000 and $10,000, because we're able to actually produce results out of that coming in. So I've had to modify who I'm in front of and how we're presented. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not saying that we're snobby in the sense that if somebody donated $25 today, that we wouldn't know what to do with that, or that we wouldn't accept it, or that that donation didn't matter. But I realized, we've all heard the saying, work smarter, not harder, that it's easier to spend my time a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month, getting myself in front of the right business, the right professional, the right person that allows me to generate a larger idea of success than it is for me to run around day to day, hour to hour, phone call to phone call, asking for all these little helps when really there's one person out there that can make that happen in twice the time, an overnight decision, can get you help. You want the organizations to start sustaining itself and working for you instead of you having to run around, with your head cut off, exhausting yourself. Because we all know as a business owner or idea entrepreneur that, in those first years, you might not be taking home a paycheck. You might be running around town, getting your idea out there, your product, your business model, and you realize that it's a full-time job outside of a full-time job. Yeah. But you can only run so fast by yourself before you can run longer and stronger with the right partners and team in place. And I realized in those first couple of years, I was sprinting a mile a minute and I was having amazing conversations, but very little result and objectives and rewards were coming back. And it wasn't until I slowed down and took kind of a bird's eye view that I realized I had to perfect my processes in place, my conversations, and the people that I was in front of so that bigger results were coming in. That exhaustion as a business owner wasn't going to get the best of me. Don't get me wrong, some nights are still very hard, some days are very challenging, and you have to overcome those obstacles. But the whole working smarter, harder thing is literally not a cliche statement that we should ignore. I believe that if I wouldn't have changed my outlook on who I was presenting to and who I was working with, that we would not be where we're at. I probably would have not been a charity in the next couple of years. I would have burnt the candle from both ends, and eventually that candle would have been gone. It would have been melted and burned out. And I think I implied it to the very outside of business too. People can maybe condemn me for this, but I've had some very challenging conversations with friends of mine who no longer have the same vision in life as me. They've given up. And when you spend time with those bloodsuckers, those leeches, you realize it drains you. And I've been that guy who has sat down at a coffee shop and said, hey, I know we've been friends for a long time, but I think we have to separate ways. I think we have to create some distance between us. It's not because I don't appreciate you, but where I'm going in life, I can't carry any more heavy weight with me that isn't going to produce positive fruit, or something that allows me to really project myself forward from all angles. And that's just me speaking heart to heart with the listeners now, that I think you need to apply this to your business life, your family life, your friend life, your spiritual life, that if there's dead weights out there that aren't producing good fruit, you need to pluck them and get rid of them.
Those that have followed me for a while, you know that is my song that I sing. So, absolutely. Now, one of the things for me is that I guess I haven't necessarily had to sit down and have a conversation, a direct conversation. That, I've never really felt like I should do that. For me, I noticed I just flat out outgrew them. And that there was a natural distance that grew between us. And it seemed as if some of those old friendships, we had very little to relate to each other. So like that desire to be in each other's company just naturally kind of left because there was a gap, a values gap. And when you have, I guess, that such a gap between where you are and where the other person is, I don't know. And I had to grieve some friendships, people I've been friends with since elementary school, that I no longer feel like I can relate to at all. And will I still be in their life from time to time, like when I show up for weddings or if they have a baby? Sure, I'll do that. But as far as like consistently hanging out with each other and keeping company with each other, it's very rare that happens. And I've talked about that importance of who you keep. Now, I could keep talking with you for a whole other hour, but we do need to wrap this up, and I want to respect your time because I usually allot an hour. So how can people connect with you? How can they find out more about Love Centers International?
Sure.
And plug in and get a part in partnership with what you are doing?
Absolutely. I would encourage everyone to at least take a time to jump on our website, which is www.lovecenters.org. And hopefully Stephanie can put that website down in the notes. Visit that website, check out our video, see what we're about, read our story, and use our contact page. Either send us a note, we'll get back in touch with you, or email us at info@lovecenters.org. We would love just to hear your response to this podcast, how you want to get involved helping a foster care child or an underprivileged youth this year, attend a camp, donate an instrument, or get involved in our mentor program. There's a lot of opportunities involved to give back to a kid right in your backyard that you don't realize is hurting as much as they are, what they've been through, what they've been forced into at an early age. And my heart talk for another hour on that level, but I really encourage people to at least start at the website, give it a minute, watch those videos, and if you feel inspired or your heart kind of sinks into your belly to make a difference in a child's life, then get on the phone with my team or myself, and let's talk about what we can do together to make some changes, get a business involved, or just what ideas that your heart or your mind have in place to make a difference. And we would love to have that conversation.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, Joe, and thank you so much for sharing your expertise and being just so transparent and giving us strategies. This was a very valuable interview, and go check him out. Go, just do what you can to support Joe and what he is doing.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time, Stephanie. I think moved by purpose is the exact words that people need to hear. When there's a purpose in place, people will respond, plans will succeed, and purpose is really, really the seed, that mustard seed that people have in their hearts. They just need to be taught and learned how to water them so that purpose can produce results. And I think your team of professionals and what you're doing is really making an impact on the community and business leaders and people's lives in whole. So we thank you for that.
Thank you.
There you have it. That was Joe Savali. I loved the process of how to network. I love how he shares with you to go to a networking event once a week, or to make sure you are networking at least once a week and provide 2 to 3 business referrals. That is gold here. And the more clear you are in expressing what you do and having a very clear ask, you will succeed. You got to keep doing it, keep proceeding, keep pushing through things, learn from what doesn't work, and you will be successful if you do not give up and if you keep going. And I'm going to announce that if you, or I have Mindset Mastery right now, which is, I know I had my seminar back in November, and I did the series on Mindset Mastery, the 5 toxic mindsets that keep you stuck and how to overcome them. I repurposed that into a course because there were people really interested in it, but couldn't travel to Detroit to attend. So now I have made this course available, and right now I'm offering an incentive. This program is now $197. This will be a $497 program. You get it for $197, plus you get 6 months to my mastermind group, which is an $894 value, completely free, just for signing up and pre-ordering. So you get free group coaching for 6 months and a $500 product for only $197. This is a deal you do not want to miss. And this program will not be available for long. In fact, I'm only offering this price for a couple weeks until May 15th, and then the price will go up. As an added bonus, the proceeds, 10% of the proceeds of the products I sell to you guys will be going to Love Centers International, because I believe in philanthropy and I use my business as a channel to help more people. And so I don't think all of you guys realize that I do give 10% or more of the profit to causes and charities that I align with. And that's my vision. So realize that I have a one-to-many approach in business. So you get to help master your mindset. You invest in yourself. You finally get unstuck. If you keep thinking you have ideas, but then you never pull the trigger, or you move and progress, but then you start, everything falls apart, and you keep repeatedly finding that you are in this same pattern of behavior over and over and over again, or you know you can sell because you sell other people's products no problem, but you have a hard time selling your own. Or you have so many ideas that you go after all of them and can't seem to really focus and discipline yourself to focusing on only one. And you know it ruins the success of your business. Then Mindset Mastery is for you, because it helps break the toxic mindsets that may be going on and help you finally to stop self-sabotaging and to walk in the success and freedom you are meant to walk in, and finally profit and have a business. Look, I have applied this, and it was a game changer for me. And I've had many people start applying this 7-step process to break free to their breakthrough, and they have radically transformed their business. So this is a program that not only do you get to benefit from in that aspect, but then knowing that supporting this business also supports many other causes. So one to many. And then you yourself being helped goes, and the multiplication effect of that is unbelievable. So that's my one to many model that that Moved by Purpose is established on. So make sure you come on over to movedbypurpose.net. Check it out. Feel free to email me if you have any questions, and you will get that exclusive $197 rate just send us Mindset Mastery in the contact. Let us know you're interested. We will give you a private link at that rate exclusively for you. And I'll talk to you all next week.